español. Si están utilizando su computadora portátil o computadora de escritorio, en un minuto y después de esta explicación van a localizar el icono con figura de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla cuando éste aparezca. Y luego pulsen en interpretación del lenguaje y seleccionen el idioma español. Si están sintonizándonos desde su teléfono, iPad o dispositivo similar, busquen el menú con los 3 puntitos en la esquina superior del lado derecho de su pantalla y pulsen interpretación del lenguaje y luego español. Esto permite que escuchen la traducción al español con un 80% de volumen y el audio en inglés se escuchará al fondo con un 20% de volumen. Tienen la opción de apagar el audio en inglés pulsando Mute Original Audio, ubicado en el mismo menú donde eligieron el idioma español. Muchísimas gracias y ahora voy a abrir el canal de español.
Gracias, Marisela. Thank you. So now hand it over to you, David.
Hey, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you for attending tonight's workshop. My name is David Sodeman and I'm the Chief of the Monitoring and Technical Services Division at the Air Pollution Control District. Before I begin, I would like to introduce you to a few key members of the Monitoring Division. Team, please introduce yourself.
Sure, I'll start. Hi, my name is David Medina and I'm the Senior Chemist for the Ambient Monitoring section.
Hello, my name is David Sheena. I am the former Senior Chemist of the Ambient Monitoring section.
I'm Adam Cantor. I'm the Senior Meteorologist in the Monitoring Division.
All right, thank you. Tonight, I will be giving an overview of the Air Quality Monitoring Network Report for calendar year 2020. The purpose of this report is to prove to EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, that the district is operating EPA's required programs according to federal regulations and guidance. This presentation will present the key points of that report. While the district does operate non-required programs, including enhanced community scale monitoring, those programs are not a part of this required report and thus will not be discussed tonight. The San Diego Air Basin covers the county of San Diego as well as the western portion of the Salton Sea Air Basin. The San Diego Air Basin encompasses approximately 3.3 million people and covers 4,200 square miles. Most of the emission sources are in the western part of the region, and that is where most of our regional air monitoring stations are located. Our monitoring locations are shown on the map as red dots. We have monitoring stations as far north as Camp Pendleton, as far south as Otay Mesa, and as far east as Alpine. These locations measure air pollution that is representative of the regional scale. These stations are sited such that the measured concentrations are representative of the average emissions, not just in that community, but the surrounding communities as well. We are also in the process of adding 3 more stations, one in San Isidro, one in Escondido, and one at the Otay Mesa border crossing. Why do we measure air pollution? The fundamental purpose of the Regional Air Monitoring Network is to distinguish areas where the pollution levels exceeds the federal air quality standards and areas that meet the standards. The district then develops strategies and regulations to achieve emission reductions necessary to meet the federal standards. This data also provides information to the public on the status of air quality in their area and the progress being made to improve air quality. The district operates 9 permanent ambient monitoring stations. These stations must meet EPA program requirements for which the station is cited for. These programs are the criteria pollutants, the National Core Program, the Airport Lead Program, the Ozone Precursor Monitoring Program called PAMS, and the Near Road Program, as well as the PM 2.5 Speciation Program. What is the annual Air Quality Monitoring Network Report? What is its purpose? The district is required by the Environmental Protection Agency to write a report every year that describes in detail the network of stations, samplers, and analyzers that the district operates for the EPA programs. This report also documents any changes that occur in that calendar year and any proposed changes for the upcoming calendar year. EPA reviews this report to determine if the district has complied with the federal regulations regarding the programs and the pollutants listed in the Code of Federal Regulations. EPA typically makes a determination of our compliance to the federal regulations in the fall. Complying with these regulations will ensure that the district will continue to receive federal grant money to continue their regional air monitoring program. The draft report is listed on the district's website on the current air quality page. A direct link to the report will be posted in the chat. From the APCD homepage, click on I want to, then view current air quality. The report name is Annual Air Quality Network Report Draft. What are the criteria pollutants? The criteria pollutants are ozone, particulate matter with diameters less than 2.5 and 10 micrometers, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and lead. For reference, the human hair is on average about 75 micrometers in diameter. For these pollutants, EPA has set a standard called the NAAQS at a level to protect public health. Every 5 years, EPA reviews the latest research to determine if the NAAQS needs to be revised. This table lists the NAAQS level for each criteria pollutant and the status of the San Diego Air Basin. For all criteria pollutants except for ozone, the San Diego Air Basin is lower than the standard. This is called attainment. There are different levels of non-attainment, which will depend on how close an area is to the standard. Those levels are marginal, moderate, serious, severe, and extreme. Non-attainment status in any one pollutant means that the district will have to develop a plan on how the district will attain the standard. This plan must be approved by EPA. On July 2nd, 2021, the San Diego Air Basin will be reclassified from serious to severe. This change in non-attainment status will give the district additional regulatory tools it needs to reduce emissions and additional time to comply with the federal standard. Based on numerous factors within the San Diego Air Basin and federal requirements, EPA has set a minimum number of monitoring stations for each pollutant. This table shows how many monitors are required for each pollutant, how many the district operates, and if there are any additional monitors needed. For all pollutants except for one, the district operates the requirement or more than the requirement. The one exception is nitrogen dioxide that is required for the near road program. This program requires 2 near road sites within 150 feet of a major freeway. Our second site in San Isidro is not up and running at this time. We are actively working on obtaining the necessary permits to install that monitoring station. In addition to the criteria pollutants, EPA has also mandated other programs that the district must operate. These programs are called PAMS, National Core, Near Road, and the Airport Lead Program. These programs must also be discussed in the annual monitoring network report. EPA has directed the district to operate our photochemical assessment monitoring stations, also called PAMS, at our site in El Cajon. This program is designed to monitor for compounds that help contribute to the formation of ozone. They are volatile organic compounds, carbonyl compounds, different oxides of nitrogen, and some meteorological parameters such as cloud mixing height. These measurements are used by researchers and modelers to better understand the role each variable has on the formation of photochemical smog. EPA has also directed the district to operate the National Core Program at our station in El Cajon. This national program measures the below compounds. The purpose of this program is to support long-term multiple science and policy objectives by providing the latest gaseous and particulate technology across a broad array of representative urban and rural locations. This national program has 63 urban sites and 17 rural sites across the United States. This is a map of our ozone network. We are required to have 2 ozone monitors in the region. We operate 7. The district is required to determine at which sampling location in the air basin has the maximum concentration. Our monitor in Alpine is the station that typically measures the highest ozone concentration. The high value is determined for this site and then compared to the federal standard to determine attainment, non-attainment status. The ozone standard is 0.070 parts per million, and our most recent high value is 0.079 parts per million. We are currently not in attainment with this standard. This slide shows the district's PM2.5 sampling locations. These sites include the filter-based measurements, which are an integrated sample collected over 24 hours, as well as our continuous measurements, which give hourly results. PM2.5 has 2 federal standards, an annual average and a daily 24-hour average. The maximum PM2.5 concentrations were observed at our Chula Vista site. However, both the annual average and the daily average were less than the federal standard. The district has 3 PM2.5 monitoring locations. Our highest concentration site has been at the Donovan sampling location in Otay Mesa. The date of the maximum concentration in 2020 was influenced by a wildfire and is higher than the standard. EPA has classified wildfires as an example of an exceptional event. Exceptional events are unusual or naturally occurring events that can affect air quality but are not reasonably controllable using techniques that an air district may use to attain the federal standard. If approved by EPA as an exceptional event, this data can be excluded from the NAAQS determination. EPA will make the final determination if the San Diego Air Basin meets the PM10 standard. This map displays our nitrogen dioxide monitoring station. We are required to operate 5 analyzers, but we operate 8. However, we are deficient in 1 analyzer, as that analyzer must be placed at a second near road location. Our second near road location is currently in the obtaining permit phase and not currently operational. We expect this site to be up and running in the next 12 months. Nitrogen dioxide has 2 federal standards, a 1-hour maximum and an annual average. Our air basin meets both of those standards. The district operates 2 carbon monoxide analyzers in the air basin. One is at our first near road location in the Carmel Mountain Ranch adjacent to the 15 freeway, and the other at our national core location in El Cajon. There are 2 federal standards for CO, a rolling 8-hour average and a 1-hour standard. Both standards are met in the San Diego Air Basin. The district is only required to operate 1 sulfur dioxide analyzer in the air basin. This analyzer is located at our national core location in El Cajon. The federal 1-hour standard is being met in our basin. The district is not required to monitor for lead other than at the McAllen-Palomar Airport. This airport was part of a special airport study several years ago. Due to that study, there was concern that the lead concentration exiting the airport property could lead to a NAAQS exceedance. Thus, sampling was required to continue for a minimum of 3 years. After 5+ years where the high values have not exceeded 50% of the standard, the district has requested the decommissioning of the lead program at McAllen-Palomar Airport. There are a few upcoming changes to the network. We are going to temporarily close the Chula Vista site. This site has been in operation since the early 1980s and needs a complete remodel due to the age of the sampling trailer and sampling deck. Once that remodeling has been completed, the site will reopen. We are currently working with the City of San Diego to obtain the necessary permits to install our second near-road station in San Isidro. For Otay Mesa border crossing site, we are currently in the site construction bidding phase. And lastly, we are working with the City of Escondido to obtain the necessary permits to complete the installation of our sampling trailer. We expect all 3 sites to be operational in 2022. We also have a few waiver requests. As mentioned earlier, the district has requested to EPA to decommission the lead sampling at McAllen-Palomar Airport. EPA has not made a ruling on that request. Until such time that they grant the request, if ever, the district will continue sampling and analyzing for lead at the airport. As part of the ozone precursor program, the district is required to operate a salometer at the PAMS location, which is at the Lexington Elementary School in El Cajon. This instrument measures the height of clouds. Due to numerous samplers already stationed at the El Cajon station, the district requested in 2019 that the salometer be placed at the Escondido site. EPA approved this request in 2020. However, given that the Escondido station is not currently operating and will take some time before it's operational, the district has begun to reevaluate whether the salometer can fit at the El Cajon station. In conclusion, the district posted the annual Air Quality Monitoring Network report on its website for public inspection on May 14th. This report is mandated by federal regulation and is to give a review of the mandated air monitoring program that the district operated in calendar year 2020. This report is available for public comment for 30 days through June 12th. A final draft will include and address any received comments and must be submitted to EPA by July 1st. We expect EPA to make a ruling on whether the district operated the required programs according to the federal regulations in fall 2020. And with that, we'll conclude our presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
If you want to ask the questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can put them in the chat as well.
Oh, come on, there's got to be at least one question.
Oh, I see someone attending. Okay, member Shu. I think you can unmute yourself as to.
Good evening, and thank you, Monica, Adam, and David show. Well, thank you for your report. I don't have any real specific questions other than as we go forward, if maybe one of you can answer a question I've had with regards to mobile monitoring and the value of that. Should we want to do a spot check on different locations? One of the issues that I've heard the public mention is that why is it stationary in one location? Shouldn't we monitor different locations, or at least check on a few locations in case there is either a specific incident or we're not watching the entire county, we're just looking at these stationary sites?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Member Shu. The purpose of the regional is to kind of look at, when we look at El Cajon, we have a station in El Cajon. It's just not measuring what is supposed to be in El Cajon. It's also the surrounding communities. But we have talked about in the past of converting, like a mobile van or something like that into like a mobile monitoring station and being able to take it out, with to different locations in which all we need is power that we can plug in, and we can quickly erect a sampling station. We've discussed that. We're definitely would like to explore that going further, because like you said, we can't be everywhere, and it would be nice to have that capabilities to go into certain areas to see if maybe we should have a regional monitoring station in those communities. That's something we've talked about for a number of years, and definitely would like to explore in the future.
Okay. And just for my kind of not curiosity, but to increase my knowledge. So we're high on ozone. What are the ramifications health-wise to people with a high ozone count with regards to health effects? And I understand ozone maybe in certain elevations. So at least for the people in Alpine, what are the real health effects that they may be suffering from the high ozone count?
Okay. Well, first, before I answer, let me just say I'm not a medical doctor, so this is what I've been told. But high ozone values aggravate any type of lung and breathing conditions. So COPD, asthma. If you've ever gone for a run on a high ozone day, you can feel after a while that burning in the lungs when you take a deep breath. That is the ozone reacting with your lung tissues and making it difficult to breathe. I know I grew up in San Diego County. I used to go up to Lake Paris in Riverside County and go boating out there in the summertime. And in the early afternoons, you can just see that haze layer, the smog rolling in, and you take a deep breath and you couldn't. It hurt, and that's due to ozone. So on a high ozone days, if you have any type of a sensitive population, the elderly, the young, people with compromised breathing, COPD, asthma, you definitely want to limit your activities outdoor on those days.
And to confirm my my thoughts on that, on ozone again, what's the primary source of ozone?
So ozone is not emitted from any one source. It's actually a byproduct of the atmosphere trying to clean up pollution. When you get car exhaust, volatile organic compounds, you get oxides of nitrogen in the air as the atmosphere is reacting and having lots of chemical reactions going on, breaking those compounds down. A byproduct of breaking that down and forming CO2 is generating ozone along the way. And so it's not usually a direct emitter. It's a byproduct. It's chemistry happening in the atmosphere, which is why it's usually the downwind sites that usually have the ozone problem, and it's not usually the sites that are generating all the pollutants, because the wind will take it further downwind. And so that's a primary reason why the inland valley areas have higher ozone. All that pollution goes. You need the sunlight to help kind of cook those reactions along. It can then get trapped at the local mountains if the inversion layer is too low.
Great, but the primary source is human activity, right? It's
Correct.
Not a natural.
There is some natural ozone if you have a large evergreen forest. Those compounds, that nice pine smell, those are releasing volatile organic compounds that could create ozone as well. And they found that in remote forest areas, that high ozone levels, and they were very surprised by that until they did some more investigations and found out that a lot of evergreen trees release some compounds that could lead to ozone formation. But in an urban setting, it's primarily human activity. The vast majority of it is human activity.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, as a member of the governing board of APCD, I want to thank you guys for putting on this workshop. It helps me understand what APC does, and this report is very informative. Thank you.
Always
Thank
welcome.
Thank you. And we have two more questions, well, actually three, but two on the Q&A. The first one is, tell us some more about the ceilometer? Ceilometer? How did you?
So yes, the ceilometer.
Ceilometer, yes.
yes.
And how does measuring the height of clouds affect air quality?
Okay, I'm gonna pass this one on to our senior meteorologist Adam, and he can explain how a ceilometer works and how it measures the height of clouds.
Okay, so yeah, one of the key. So the ceilometer does two things. Typically the National Weather Service will measure the heights of clouds, and our ceilometer will also measure the heights of clouds, and that's what gets reported in observations at airports. However, one of the other things that the ceilometer does is it measures mixing height. And so mixing height is basically measuring the height of the inversion effectively. So the inversion layer is basically kind of acts like a cap. So you want to know how high that is. And one way we look at that, typically throughout the years, the National Weather Service sends up a balloon twice a day in the morning and the evening, and that will show us where the inversion layer is. So the reason that's a key is because it acts like a cap for pollution. So the ceilometer will measure it real time and tell you what the mixing height is. And so that's important at the PAM site for where we have the precursors for ozone formation. That's the purpose of that site. So if we know how high the mixing height is, we have a better idea of what the ozone levels will be for that day and where those high levels will take place. So it's an important tool for that. We don't use it as much. It will also measure cloud heights, but that has less to do with the air pollution aspect of it. So I hope I answered that. Feel free to follow up if I didn't.
Okay, thank you, Adam. We have another question here. It says, is San Diego County ever going to be able to get into attainment status for ozone? Aren't the ozone levels in Alpine associated with the inversion layer? And what strategies are in place to get us into attainment for ozone? It's like a three-part question.
Those are very good questions. A lot of what I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully answer the last question, what strategies are in place to get us in attainment for ozone, because that's a different section within the division that is worked on the strategies. I know they are working very hard to come up with different strategies that will get us in attainment. I know we will get there at some point. Obviously we would like to get there within the next year. That's obviously not going to happen. But I know we are actively working on different strategies to get us in attainment. But yeah, ozone levels in Alpine are associated with the inversion layer. But ozone comes from precursors. If we can control the precursors, then we will control ozone, and that's really what these strategies are aimed at. So I hope that answers your question. I'm hopeful that we're gonna get there as soon as possible.
I don't know if I see Nick is in on the chat, and as a participant, I don't know if he wants to jump in on that at all. I might be putting him on the spot.
Oh, let me see.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, this is Nick Cormier. I actually worked on the ozone plan, and which lays out. We just completed our ozone plan at APCD that addressed all of the strategies and rules and concepts that are in place and will be in place over the next decade or so. We just completed our 2020 ozone plan, and primarily, it's a very long document, but just to summarize, it's a collection of stationary source rules. On the state level, it's a collection of mobile source rules, and then also at the federal level, which also addresses mobile source rules that are out of the authority of the state. So trains, ships, that sort of thing. So it's a combined strategy that collectively that will get us to attainment. And in that plan, which I encourage everyone to visit on our website, we're projecting through photochemical modeling that we would be in attainment for the 70 parts per billion ozone standard by 2032. So we're not there yet. We've got work to do, but that is the current time frame that we're projecting. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Nick. And I see Member Shu, you have your hand raised. You want to add something to this?
Yes, I think one of the major components of ozone, of course, comes from automobile exhaust. And I just want to point out that Sandag's new regional transportation plan, its draft EIR, was revealed last Friday. And within that, Sandag hopes to implement a overall transportation plan, which will reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet the state guidelines, and do so fairly quickly. A pretty steep decline going into 2030 and 2035, and more into 2045 and 2050. So I think that's something that's worthwhile looking at and supporting. There's also the implementation of SB 743, reducing vehicle miles traveled throughout the county and region. We hope that the county will fully implement 743 per state guidelines. All these things, I think, will reduce greenhouse gas emissions substantially, which in turn will also reduce ozone. I think the APCD is of course, we have a new governing board. We hope to address these pollutants fairly aggressively as we get further into reforming the organization and putting greater priority in really cleaning up our air and having less of an impact on our communities. Ozone is one measurement that I'm sure we notice a lot. I certainly grew up in Los Angeles and know what ozone is like. I had the same symptoms as David did with regards to coughing whenever we had a bad ozone day or bad smog day. We certainly want to avoid any increase in that, and hopefully in the next few decades reduce it substantially. So I hope people do look at the regional transportation plan from Sandag, and also support APCD as we go further into enforcing our strategies. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Nick, you want to add something else?
Yeah, just real quick, because board member Shu brought up a great point about Sandag's regional plan and kind of the tie-in through to ozone and our ozone plan. Within our ozone plan, it's upon Sandag to decrease vehicular emissions of ozone precursors by 30% by 2026 and by 40% by 2032. So, going back to the overall ozone strategy, there's a very direct tie-in between the Sandag regional plan and our ozone plan. And that is called our motor vehicle emission budgets, which Sandag is required to meet, and that comes from our ozone attainment plan. I also just wanted to add, I'll send a link to Monica for the ozone plan and to post in the chat, if that's of use to anybody, a direct link to the ozone plan in case anybody wanted to take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Shu, go ahead.
I didn't have any other comments. I should probably lower my hand, but
thank you, sorry, Nick. I thought you raised it again. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
But thank you, Nick, for that comment. Yeah, the goals for Sandag reduction of at least greenhouse gas emissions is slightly different from the ones you just gave for the APCD strategies. But at some point, I hope we do meet. One thing that I do want to point out is a lot of people will simply say, well, we just need to electrify our auto fleet. Our car emissions can go down if we simply electrify the cars that we use. I should point out that the state CARB state agencies have noted that electrifying the vehicles is not enough. We could do the transformation to electric vehicles as fast as we can, but it would not reduce greenhouse gas emissions to the point that we need. We do have to reduce vehicle miles traveled, and the strategies that Sandag is trying to employ work towards that end. And I think that's important that the public needs to realize that we cannot count on electric vehicles to save us here. We need to reduce the vehicle miles traveled as the strategy goes forward.
Thank you. And Vanessa sent a question through the chat. I want to mention this. So another question here says, does the report contain data relative to impact on health conditions related to findings in this and reports in prior years?
That's a good question. This report doesn't contain a whole lot of data, and it's done by design because the requirements for this report are not really looking for a data answer. It's more about, is it cited correctly, where it is, and that kind of stuff. We do put some dates or some data in it, the annual averages as it compares to the federal standard, but we don't really tie that into any type of health conditions or health effects. That's kind of outside the purview of that report, and so we didn't want to make this report from 190 pages up to 300 or 400 pages. So we did not include that kind of measurements and that kind of analysis in this report.
Thank you. And then Nick, Larry is asking if you could repeat those dates that you mentioned. It says 30% by 2026 and 40% by when?
Sure. It's 2020. It's a 30% reduction from 2020 levels by 2026, and a 40% reduction from 2020 levels by 2032. Hopefully I said that right. But yeah, those are the two critical years, 2026 and 2032, which are our attainment years for the ozone plan.
Perfect. He got it. Thanks so much. All right. I don't see any more questions in the chat or the Q&A. Unless anybody else wants to add something else or have another question. Seeing none. Well, any closing remarks, David? Adam?
Thanks everybody for attending, and we had some good questions. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, thank everybody for taking time out of your evening to attend.
Thanks, Nick, for answering questions.
Right. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you,
No
everyone.
problem.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, we look forward for more presentations like this, more information. Thank you. Have a good evening. Goodbye.